Welcome to my online gaming final presentation. For my research report, I looked into Unity and HTML5 and how those games are created differently and or similar. So the purpose of this presentation is to teach and compare the different ways of creating certain parts of a game in both Unity and HTML5. I'm going to look at both and compare if they use similar techniques or different. So the three areas I'm going to be looking into will be the inputs in both Unity and HTML5 with sound and the animations. I'm going to break these down individually, talk about like a small step-to-step on how this can be done in both, and then compare them and give my final thoughts about what I find about each one. So for first up is the inputs in Unity, and basically from experience using Unity, you want to pretty much include the Unity standard assets, that cross-platform input at the top, and then when you go back into the Unity editor and manager, you're going to go to the input manager and a new input. You're going to name it everything you want. Like you can choose to name what the actual input is. So as you can see from this image, the fire one, I set that. I named it fire one and I set what button it is. I'll show all of this in a second. And when you go to the script. So in this example, it's my player script, and then you set it to where you set what happens when the input equals true, and you just set what happens, what's supposed to happen when that button's pressed at any given time. So just to quickly recap and the script, you pretty much need the address, and then when you go down to say where you want, like here, so it's like an input dot get button equals fire one, which is left click in this case, and then it checks the rest of my parameter, and then if this whole statement's true, then it does whatever's in my click left mouse button. And then same with inputs. If reload, which would be R in this case, is pressed, then it reloads the gun. Input manager, you can just keep saying the size of how many different inputs you need. Your name, the input can be anything, just needs to be the same name in here and the script. And then you set what button you wanted to. You can set multiple ones, but you just need this is the main button, mouse zero, which is left click. And you just do that for any button you need. And that's how inputs are done in Unity. I'm now in HTML. I'm going to quickly talk about two types of inputs. You got the mouse inputs and you got keyboard inputs. So for mouse inputs, you need an event listener so it can listen to your script and find out when you're actually pressing the desired like left or right click. And then you also need to create X and Y so the mouse knows where you are. That's where if you want like hovering effects, if you hover over a certain character or something, dialogue or something could pop up. And then when the click actually is detected, there's always the if statement like in Unity, which is to compare which when it happens, it just does what's in it. And for the keyboard input, pretty similar, but you have two event listers, one for key up and key down, so you know when the player's pressing, say W for moving forward and when we're not. You create a variable so for each key, so it knows what key is being input, and if statements for if that key has an action due to the action. So again, if W is pressed, you may want to move the character forward, or spacebar, jump the character. Example of some basic inputs with the mouse from W Free Schools, which is a great source for Unity or for Unreal, for HTML, learning HTML, how to do basic functions like the sound, the input, and everything. Great resources if you want to learn some HTML. So as you can see in this example that provide when you're hovering over the mouse, it's showing mouse is over, so it knows your position at all times when it's on it, when it's off. And if you click it, as you can see, it's showing click. Like it knows I'm clicking the mouse. And that's just the basic input. And now for audio. Audio is pretty simple. It starts off with you want to get a WAV file for say, and then you put it into like I had an audio source, audio file on my project for all my audio. That's where I put it. I added all of the sources I want, and then you want to add in the script. You want to add the audio. You want to add any sound you need. You want to create an audio source for it. And then once that's in, and that's going to you're going to want to make sure that's the same name to the audio name in the file in your project settings. You're going to call the play method from the audio source in the script, because each audio source has a play method in Unity. You just need to call that, and then in the Unity editor, you go to say character, or to like my gun. In my example, I used the gun. I put an audio source in Unity on that, and then I drag the sound I want. For the character, I wanted to drag the sound off for it onto the into the source. Or the example of this audio is so at the top of the script, I got my public audio sources named Gunfire and hit sound. So that's what I need for my player. And when I come down to where it is, when you shoot, it's in my shoot function. I call it Gunfire script, and then it's just when I wanted to play the sound, I just call. That's all you need. Gunfire.play, and it will play the sound. If it's on like music, or you don't want to play for so long, you could do stop and it stop playing the sound. And then all you need to do is come back. So if I have an audio source on my character and my gun, I go to the audio source, I put the clip I want to hit sound effect, and it's spelled the same way as it is in my script. And once that's in, it will play when that sound is called. You can change all if you want to loop, how loud it is, the pitch, and everything. Audio for HTML, very similar. You make a sound variable. You set that sound to what you want. Can be anything, just a basic sound effect. And then it's like in Unity, you just call it a play function from that audio source. And it will play when it happens. And if it's a background music, you play it where the function starts, not necessarily where you need it to. And as you can see in the example again from W3 Schools, for the sound, or as you see, my sound.play, that stuff. That's all you need for when you get hit. It's just my sound.play for if I run the example. There's the sound when it hits an object, and that's what it's saying when objects hit play sound, and it's playing a sound. And that's all you need for basic sound in Unity and HTML. It's very similar. Next is animations, and for Unity, pretty simple, just some tedious steps. First, the only thing you really need to do in script is declare an animator. This way, the animation, the animator will know for say the player, it will know what stats you'll have. It can grab any stats it needs for figuring out when the player gets hit, how much health it has, what speed it is for the idle or running animation. If it's jumping, and it can do a jumping animation, or just stuff like that. And then when you go to the animation tab, pretty simple, you create as many animations as you need, and for each one, you make keyframes for every different position. You'll need every like main. So say like you want like 25%, 50, and 75, and 100. You'll have your four keyframes, and then at each one you'll change the position you want each limb or the character to be in. And when you play it, it will be an animation. You will repeat this for each animation you need for the character or the enemy. And then you would also create the states for the animator, like is running, and then it can check what speed it is, what speed the player's running at, or how much health the player has, if the player's jumping or not. And then those variables will be able to create transitions for changing in between animations. And how it's done is, like I said, at the top of the script, I got basic animator, and then the main part is come to your animator, and then the animation, this is where you choose all your animation. As you see, there's some keyframes. This is where you can create what animation you have and everything it does. And then a basic like animator for states is you have your idle, you got run, you go in between, and the conditions are if speed's greater than 1, go to the run. If it's less, you go back. You got the parameters from that take the information from the animator that's at the top of the script. And you just do that for every animation your character will have. And then when it runs, your character will be moving, it will have animation. Right now for the animations in HTML, you create two functions. The first function will be for keyframes, changing all of that. If you want percentage, for like each percentage so like you can again you can have it to 25, 50, 75, and 100 or wherever you want. That one script will just be for where each keyframe is and how the object or player changes out each keyframe. And then the second function will be for everything that the animation can do, where it starts, how long it is, can it repeat, and stuff like that. You can also have canvas if you want more complex animations, but for the basic ones, you just need the two functions. An example of that is, as you can see, you got the keyframe script here. It has all the percentage, what the color of the square is at each one, where it is, and then as you can see, each position is changing. You got the duration, and then this the second one for how long it is, where it starts, does it loop, how long, and stuff like that. So I run it, you can see each part is changing color just like here. Lasts about 4 seconds, like how it's declared. And if I say change this to 8, it'll take twice as long. It's going slower. And again, that's how you create basic animation in HTML5. And on my final thoughts. So from what I found from doing my research and with my experience with Unity, I found out these are both options, good options for games. You can create different games with each one. I feel like Unity is a better one if you know what you're doing, you've had more experience with programming, and you want to make a bigger game that has more complex features, longer levels, more gameplay, a more bigger project for more time. Well, HTML5 is a great way to start making games and learning the basic features of what goes into a game, as a lot of the stuff I talked about can be carried into Unity. So it's like you're just learning the basics in a bit simpler environment coding. It's a bit easier, but for both good for their own ways of doing some simple 2D games with HTML. And it's also easier to have these on the internet because they're making it for the web browser. And thank you for listening to my presentation.